Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 26th of June. But before we start, for those who want to chat with me live, I would like to ask you to stay tuned till the end of the video. I have a little announcement for you. So now let's start. There weren't much updates from Ukraine, just local battles. There were no movements. Just updates of the map according to the result and according to the progress that the sides achieved during this week. If you take a look at the Russian sources map, of course, the main update is that Rubezhnoye, Severodonetsk, Borivsk, Voronov, Metelkino, the airport, Sirotino, Lesnaya Dacha, all this town on this side of the river, now is under the Russians, under entire control. There is just few towns on this side of the river, I see like Pavlograd and Sinetsky. It's like small villages right on the bulk of this river that is still in the Ukrainians, but this town is in the gray zone. I'm not sure about this information. Maybe this is the reason why the Russians can't get so close to the river, because of artillery shelling and so on. So we'll follow. But if we take a look at the West sources map, we're gonna see that all these towns like Severodonetsk, Voronov, Borivsk, Sirotino is still under the Ukrainians. I think that maybe in a day or two this territory will be colored, because the Ukrainian military authorities has already confirmed the loss of these towns. So we'll see. So there weren't much updates today, but I found very interesting update in the internet, in the open source, and I think that now it's time to discuss maybe some third phase of this war, of this special military operation. Let's take a look at this map. This is as far as I understand, this is the most updated one according about the Russian forces on the front lines. I'm talking about the Russians who is on the front line. We are not considering the forces that are like that is in the back, that is controlling the territory in the towns, that who is like in the rotation process and so on. And let's start from the north. If we take a look at this map, I'm not saying that this information is correct. I just found this information, and a lot of people pay some attention to this map. So I think that today we can discuss this information. I'm sure that there is some truth in this information, maybe some differences, because it's very difficult to understand and to know if there is like what is the number of BTGs on this or this territory. So let's start with Kharkiv. As you can see, according to this map, there are around just 7 BTGs on the north of Kharkiv. If we take a look at the West sources map, we can say that in the area between Kazachye Lopen and Stary Saltov, in this area, there are around even Pechenegi. I think that from Kazachye Lopen till Pechenegi, there are around 7 BTGs. So this is the reason we see that the Russians are not very fast and it's not so aggressive in this area. Of course, there are heavy clashes. According to the Russian sources, there are very heavy clashes around Russky Tishki and around Dementievka, Nova, but the Russians are pushing, but not so fast. There are some clashes around Stary Saltov, and the Russians want to return these towns like Rubizhny, Verkhnyi Saltov. And of course, the reason is that the Ukrainians have some background bridgehead on this side of the river near Khatomlia, but everything is not so active and not so aggressive. Now let's move to the south. There are 3 BTGs on the line between Chuguyev and Balakleya. That not much at all. So this is our Chuguyev, Pechenegi, and this is Balakleya. So we can say that this area between rivers is protected by just 3 BTGs, and we can say that this area, from the Kharkiv till Balakleya, this one on the West sources map is all this area. The standard, the quantity of kilometers per 1 BTG is around 17. So we understand that this is not the offensive configuration. So we understand that this is defense configuration, and we understand that in the very near future we are not going to see any clashes, any offensive operations towards Kharkiv. Maybe there are going to be some frontline battles just to clear, to destroy some block post and so on, just to clear the front line and to fight against the enemy's commandos or scouts. Now let's move to the south, and now let's discuss the area between Balakleia and Bakhmut. This one area, I think that we should consider this territory as one big zone. Of course, there are some, this territory is split into 4 parts. Let's discuss all these 4 parts one by one. So this is the territory I'm talking about. This Balakleia. Now we move to the south towards Izum, Yarovo Liman, Rubizhne. All this area from Rubizhne to Borivsk is under the Russians. This map is not updated. So Rubizhne, Severodonetsk, and then towards Svetlodarsk. So the south from Bakhmut, where the Russians are trying to encircle forces in Ugledarsk power plant. So this is area we are talking about from Balakleia towards Svetlodarsk. According to this map, there are around 54 active BTG from in this area, and the quantity, the kilometers per BTG is around 5 kilometers per 1 BTG. So we see that this area is like under offensive configuration. So we understand that the Russians concentrated their forces exactly in this area, and that they're planning to do more offensive operation further. During the last week, we saw that the main clashes were around Lysychansk agglomeration. According to this map, there are around Lysychansk agglomeration, there are around 34 BTGs. But to be more precise, if we're talking about the active front line, there are around 24 BTGs. So let's take a look one more time. So from the area from Kremenaya towards Borivsk, there is 7 BTGs, and in area we are calling like Popasna Flower, Popasna Bridgehead is around 17 BTGs. According to this map, so there is around 24 BTGs, and these forces are pushing Ukrainians, so this is the most active front line. But there is another big concentration of the Russians, and this is the area between Balakleia and Kremenaya. So there is around 30 BTGs in this area, and 20 BTGs is around Izum. So the area between Izum and not but Izum from Yarovo towards Rubizhne in this area, there is around 10 BTGs. So these forces are not active. They wasn't so active last week. The only update we know and the only success they achieved is that they took Sidorova last week. It was like the final confirmation, and there is a very heavy clashes around Dolina and Krasnopolye. So the Russians are preparing some bridgehead on the north of this area. We can say that the configuration of this area has offensive state. So that means that after regrouping, after fulfilling of shelling, ammunition, and so on, the Russian might start some offensive operation towards Slaviansk. Now let's move next from Gorlovka towards Kherson area. This one, the largest one. Their front line is big here, but by the way, if you take a look at this map, if we take a look at the West Sources map, now we're talking about the area between Gorlovka and like Kherson, this one. But to tell the truth, the front line between from this point towards Gorlovka has the same is the same as the front line from Gorlovka towards Balakleia, but because of the fact that this line is more straight, so that's mean that if you take a look at this map, like from the visual point of view, this front line is much bigger. But if it's calculating the kilometers, they are similar. Like Balakleia, Gorlovka, this one is the same as here, and mainly because of the fact that this front line moves along the Seversky Donetsk River. So that's why it's like a snake, and that's why this front line is very long. But about the quantities, there are around, if you take a look at this map, 22 BTGs who is controlling this area. And we see that it's like corresponds and correlate with the reality, because the Russians are not offending this area. There's just like icons of rockets, missiles, that they're shelling this area heavily, that they're shelling Ukrainians in this area. And also this information can be confirmed by the offensive operation that Ukrainians started the previous week. You see that they have returned some area between Velika and Novosilovka, Ugledar. They returned Pavlovka. Now, if we take a look at the West Sources map, we see that Yegorovka is also marked as, and Shevchenko is also marked as the territory that is under Ukrainians. But if we take a look at the Russian Sources map, we're gonna see that that these areas is still under the Russians. Yegorovka, but Shevchenko, yes, Shevchenko is marked out the territory under the Ukrainians. So we see that the Ukrainians have some success in this area. They see, just like from the perspective of just a simple math, they see that there are very big front line, like 300 kilometers, and there are not much forces. Furthermore, the main forces, the Russian main forces, is located in the most powerful near Donetsk. They're trying to solve the issue with Avdiivka, so that's why they're started their offensive operation, and they're pushing the Russians back exactly in this area, trying to move towards Volnovakha. You see that this is like the back near Volnovakha. So we'll see and try to follow this situation as well. Now let's take a look about our Kherson area. If you take a look at this area, you're going to see that there is just 13 BTGs, and as you see, the territory around, like we can say, like the smallest one, right, from this bulk of the river to the south, it's not big, but there are around 250 kilometers in the same picture because of the fact that the front line moves along the river. It increased the length of this river, so we can say that there are also not much of the Russians, just the 13 BTGs in this area, and that's why we see that there is no offensive operation as well. So the configuration of this front line is also has a defense state. Now let's go back to our Seversky Donetsk Lysychansk agglomeration. You see that we see that the Russians are pushing there. Yesterday and today there weren't much updates because the Russians were clearing this area, establishing some front lines, their position, enforce them, and so on. They're preparing for the final push, which will allow them to encircle Lysychansk agglomeration totally. And now they're stopped. They need some time. It's like, I think that's a wise decision. Furthermore, of course, the Ukrainians are there. We discussed that there are around 8,000 soldiers, and it's not so easy to encircle this area. As we see, the Ukrainians decided to fight, to give a battle. I don't see any movements from their side to retreat from this area. So that's why the Russians need some time to prepare. But the thing is that all this town on this side of the river, from Rubizhne towards Borivska, is under the Russians. Of course, they need some days, like 2-3 days, maybe a week. Maybe this week we aren't gonna see anything in this area. The Russians will just shell this area heavily, and we're gonna turn to this area where the Russians were in peace state like like a week. Now they're ready to continue their fightings, their fight towards Mayaki and so on. But the thing is that all these towns on this side of the river is already under the Russians, and there are around 7 BTGs. And by the way, those 7 BTGs, take this map, this one is one of the most powerful and experienced. There are some brave soldiers. There are brave, I mean not like their state, but it's like the soldiers, if you saw maybe on the videos, like with red thing on their shoulders with letter O. It's in the Russian calls отважные, but if we translate it in English, it's like brave. So it's like brave groups. And Chechensky Spetsnaz, furthermore, there is very experienced LPR forces. So we see that the Russians, I think that they are not planning to cross this river, and that means that those 7 BTGs is already free, so they can move them towards any other front line. I don't think that they're going to do this very far from this area, like sending them somewhere towards Izium. I don't think. I just think that they will be transferred to the south. I think that they're gonna keep there some 2 BTGs, like from Rubizhne toward Borivsk. They don't need more. I don't think that the Ukrainians are planning to cross this river back and start offensive operations over this town, like with the idea to return this bridgehead. I don't think so. So these 5 BTGs from those 7 will be transferred to the south, or maybe to the north towards like Liman Kremina area. So that means that starting the next week, the push from any of these sides, like from the north or from the south, will be enforced with very professional forces, and this might bring the Russians significant success in this situation. Furthermore, let's discuss one more time the situation when this entire area is going to collapse, right? I have already prepared some map for this. What do I mean by telling like this front line is going to collapse? I mean the situation when the Russians will clear entire this area, and as soon as the Russians are able to push the Ukrainians to the line from Siversk towards the Bakhmut, so this one. And the length of this front line is 31 kilometer. And if we are talking about the front line configuration before this significant push, and the front line is around 136 kilometers. And the standard, according to this map, in this area is around 5 kilometers per BTG. So we can say that as soon as the Russians are able to push Ukrainians just to this line, they will free around 25 BTGs. And that's a lot. That's a lot. And where the Russians can use those 25 BTGs, it's very big fist. Very big fist, and of course they can use this fist anywhere. For example, to start offensive operation towards Slaviansk, but the north is already enforced. Maybe they will, if we're talking about those 25 BTGs, I don't think that it's a very good idea to keep here in this area around 50 BTGs or something like this. I think that they will be pushed to the south towards Gorlovka, and with those 25 BTGs, because we know that from starting from Gorlovka towards the Zaporozhye, there is just, if we take a look at this map, just 22 BTGs on this entire front line. So those 20-25 BTG can be a game changer on the south, and with them, if as soon as the Russians are able to establish the front line along this small road, they can enforce the south, enforce the operation from Avdiivka. So I think that this might be the next step and the next goals for the Russians, for those BTGs who will be free from this area. Because I don't think that it's a very good idea to enforce this group, because there are already a lot of forces and they have their power, their manpower to critical mass to continue this operation. So we'll see and we'll follow this situation. Now let's talk a little bit about the events that were held on the front lines. As you can see, for example, the Ukrainians used their HIMARS that were supplied by the USA against Izium. So there was video and photos of this. This is the photo of destruction made by those HIMARS that were supplied by the US. Also, there is an icon and video of first using of T-90 in their the latest upgrade version near Izium bridgehead. So the Russians not just enforcing this area with soldiers, but with the modern equipment, modern tanks they have. There was some updates from the church near Svetogorsk. This church, exactly, particularly if we're talking about this part, is still under the Ukrainians. So the bridgehead on the east from Tatianovka, Priship and Sirotine, Isidorov is under the Russians, but this church is under the Ukrainians. And today we got some confirmation that there is some mess in this building, in this church. 3 of monks were, according to the Russian sources, of course, it's up to you to believe or not, that there were 3 monks who were trying to leave, to escape this area from the Ukrainians, and according to the Russian sources, those 3 monks were trying to cross the river and they were shot by the Ukrainians. It's up to you to believe or to know this information. Now some updates are coming from this area. The Russians are bombing the warehouses in this area. They're clearing the area from Gorsko-Zolotoye. They complete this doing. There were around 2,000 of Ukrainians in this area, and so for now I don't know about their destiny, if they were captured or so on. But the only thing that some forces from Gorsko-Zolotoye were trying to break through this area, trying to reach their forces in Lysychansk agglomeration or in Bakhmut, and they used the roads across the fields, across the mine fields. So according to the Russian sources, some of the Ukrainians got into the mine fields and were killed by their own mines, because entire area around Gorsko-Zolotoye was mined by them. So it's not very good, of course, not very good. There are also the shelling all along the front line. Donetsk, we can see it's also shelled, but not so much as we saw the previous week. Another important update is that all along the entire Ukraine there are a lot of training centers, and according to the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, a lot of big big numbers of these training centers were attacked by the Russians' Iskanders or their Kalibr rockets, and there were a big number of Russian Ukrainian soldiers who were killed during those attacks. More updates are coming from our Snake Island. This morning there was another attack from the Ukrainian side towards the station in this sea. And some Russian intel sources are saying that the Ukrainians are preparing for another attempt of deblocking of the Snake Island. So maybe the next week we're gonna see a lot of battles on the line from Odessa towards Kherson and towards Zaporozhye on the south. So we see that the Ukrainians accumulate a big quantity, big army in this area, and as I see, this is the priority for them, priority region. So I think that they will try to offense Kherson, Zaporozhye, Volnovakha, and of course the Snake Island. This is the main territory for them, and of course the main idea from the Ukrainian side is to force the Russians to push their forces from this area, from Donetsk, from Donbas arc operation towards the south. Now a small announcement. Every Saturday I plan to conduct a brief review of military events in Ukraine over the past week, after which we will be able to talk. I will answer all your questions. For those who are interested in this, I suggest joining my Patreon, because I will send a link to this event only to my patrons. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes. I remind you that Military Summary channel condemns any violence in Ukraine. So have a good weekend. Bye bye.